Hey, my name is Anastasia. I'm a first-time founder of a social startup called Unsume, and this is everything we've done so far to get from idea to MVP. So around 2023, I got the idea to build a platform that helps people reduce the amount of textile waste that they create from their wearable items that just have a hole or two and they end up being thrown into landfill instead of actually being repaired and their life cycle prolonged. The idea was pretty much on the surface, straightforward, building on top of my fashion education. After applying to Tallinn University, getting in September of 2024, I started the master's program, and I want to go through a little bit of all the different points that have been super helpful so far in the course and the development. As of this stage, from where I'm filming this video from, it's been 1 full year of my master's program. Here are some of the top courses that I found extremely useful. Business model development was one of the earlier courses that we took. Obviously, helped identify one of the many business models that we could apply to our platform and how we could develop that further. We needed to go immediately do user testing, user validation, and problem and solution interviews with people. Real people, get out of the university, talk to people. For me, that meant balancing that out in parallel with my work, but luckily my user group was also part of my colleague friend group. I took advantage of that. Prototyping. I chose to go there to actually just learn how the basics of prototyping work because I already knew that I wanted to build a platform. I didn't really need to shift my idea way too much. We'll get to that later because we have done a slight pivot later on. Led by a professor within the area of human-computer interaction. Things that I learned from there were full-on lo-fi prototyping. Don't try to immediately go into like super detailed mock-ups on Figma. Don't immediately spend a massive amount of time on generating those ideas. In the beginning of last year, all of those AI-enhanced tools and vibe coding wasn't that developed yet. So keep that in mind. Nowadays, it's a lot easier. But the whole idea is that if you have some sort of visual understanding of what your platform is supposed to look like, then go ahead and draw it. Purely, like, honestly, draw it on paper, cut those pieces out, make your users, potential users, interact with the platform and let them purely like fake click on whatever you want them to click on, give them the next screen, what they're supposed to engage and find. Because in that stage, you will already find what is useful, what is not useful, versus where you hire someone who builds that UI for you beautifully out and then you find out that the users actually don't need that, you know? Concept of social capital as social impact. We are all trying to build a social business, social enterprise, right? And the whole point is that you don't start to create what you think people need, but you generally, again, expand that value proposition to what people could benefit from in the longer term. So in my case, what that means is that I don't just build a platform for the sake of repairs, but I also expand that. How can I engage a larger group of people? Can I perhaps collaborate with the Estonian unemployment board? Can I maybe include underserved group, such as people with disabilities? Is there a way for me to provide value for them? Perhaps they could be the people repairing items and maybe unemployment board could upskill them because they already provide that as a service. I could provide them a platform to have stable income and influx of orders. Then Open Innovation Systems was a really cool course with a professor from the UK. He engaged us to play with Legos. So at first we were creating a massive mind map. There wasn't just one main central bubble of how do we want to solve this problem, but more so who are the user groups that can benefit from it. Can you work with government? Can you provide a solution for them? And the whole point wasn't to lock yourself into a bubble of thought that you already had created for yourself, but more so expand beyond the thoughts that you already had and go as deep as possible. And for me, that meant a massive wall of ideas. And then afterwards, we were creating a vision of the future, create out of Legos a vision of how we see success looking like for a certain type of person. Imagine what success looks like for you. And if you have access to Legos, that's cool because again, you engaged in the physical space, so that forces your mind to think a little bit differently. So create that model and think of what your business is doing and how is it looking like in 5 years from now, and then backcast it. So what does that mean for you to take actions within the next 3 years, 1 year, a few months, and so on. I do backcasting in my personal life as well. I love to build my goals on top of the information of, let's say, what do I want to get to in 10 years? These kind of thoughts. Then next course was ethical issues of business management. We were just exploring different companies and what kind of ethical structures they have in place. So for me, that's inspiration to write my own code of ethics for Unsume. Because for us, we're operating in a space where we definitely want to be as sustainable as humanly possible. So what does that mean for our resource management? What does that mean for our integration of artificial intelligence into the platform? Because we all know that it takes about 7 times more energy for AI to search the answer for you instead of Googling. So do we want our algorithms to be based on AI, or can we actually get by creating just a logical sequence of what the formula has to do essentially to match people up instead of us using AI. Helpful resources throughout my university time so far. Business model canvas, Figma, FigJam templates, definitely explore that, because if you're starting from absolute zero, obviously YouTube videos can help you, but if you go into FigJam, then you can definitely just explore all of the bunch of options that we have there. And I will show you right now on the screen what I have done throughout the course so far. In the business development course, you do your typical business model canvas, you do your lean canvas, value proposition canvas, and you try to build the steps that you would be taking there, right? You try to define the problem, solution, key metrics that you would be measuring, revenue streams, and so on. So that was main part of that lesson. Lesson 2, I believe with the same professor, we had to create our user personas, user profiles. And the whole idea is that you iterate on them and you change them all the time when you realize that this version doesn't work. And what you want to do is to try and validate every single step. So let's say we decided that one of the user groups that we identified is single mothers in a specific area of London. Then you go and try to figure out if your solution would actually be beneficial to them, or maybe your solution doesn't need to change at all, but a different user group is the one that you're trying to benefit. And then you test and you validate, and then you arrive to a certain conclusion where our user groups and our approach overlaps, trying to connect the two options, and then somewhat position our competitive landscape. So if you know what the alternatives are for the user, at this stage I was focusing on literally the ones that are accessible in Estonia, because we do have competitors for this original thought that I had at that point, but not in Estonia at least. What does your platform even offer? What is the flow of steps that you're taking? How does the user interact with the platform? And then we did empathy mapping. That was actually something we did on a different course. I think it was Psychology of Interaction Design, again, another elective that I took. The whole point was to try to empathize with the user and what they actually experience, because maybe they do want to be sustainable and maybe money is not the problem for this particular group, but there's some societal expectation that is placed upon them, which is why they're not engaging with it. For example, maybe what they hear around themselves is that their friends and family are telling them, hey, actually secondhand clothing is looking ugly, or maybe they grew up in a less wealthy conditions with their family, and back in the day they were bullied because their clothing was broken, and nowadays they only buy new things, and this is not a matter of status, it's a matter of their childhood trauma. So there are many things that can actually be involved in this space, so you would want to build an empathy map for that sense as well. Stakeholder mapping, so you want to see who are the potential parties involved, who can help you develop the solution as much as possible. So at this stage, again, I was looking for different governmental funding, angel investment, of course, yes, sure, but also repair providers, different repair businesses that already exist, any sort of networks that I could tap into and actually help them increase their flow of orders. Replacing is easier than repairing. This was my hypothesis. What feeds into it? Well, if you are busy at work, if you have too little time to go find yourself a repair place, then you won't go. And the reason for that is that you're busy at work and your schedule is too tight. Maybe you have a language barrier, you don't understand what the repair places say. Well, you have decision fatigue and cognitive overload from the already busy day. So there is a challenge in getting that, even if, let's say, your language is the same. And what does that lead to? It leads to the reduced frequency of engagement with repairs. So again, you try to map out all of the aspects that are engaged here, and then we created a goal tree. Like, what do we even want to get to? Where do we start and what is our final goal, right? So the idea would be to gradually make fast fashion go out of fashion, make circular economy within the textile sector be a very strong, prevalent competitor. And maybe with measurable data, they would be able to take a lot more action on it. Then we went into impact visualization. So measurement plan, this was going over how would I even try to achieve my goals and what data points and from where would I be able to measure that improvement. Theory of change goes over how you would be implementing your solutions, what you would need to take care of, what are the outcomes you expect, the impact, the activities that you will be taking. And then beneficiary journey map outlines exactly how are all of your parties benefiting, what are the risks that you might notice along the way, and how you could prepare for them and try to mitigate them eventually. Order journey, I was just mapping it for myself to understand what we're even doing, whether or not that makes sense. My camera died and it's the next day, but I want to tell you what were the helpful resources throughout my university time. Check European Union grant websites. They have a lot of information. Don't expect to get those grants because there are very strict rules on how you need to apply to them. So the most important part is that you very carefully read the requirements and how they're evaluating all of the applications, because whatever they're evaluating, if you're not strictly within those lines, they will not count it as something positive. So that is extremely important. Always check European Union information that they're posting about their goals, about their vision, because if that is something that you're trying to go for, like equity-free funding from EU, then you, again, should make sure that what they are after is the same thing that you're trying to present. Doesn't mean that you need to change your plans, right? Unless obviously you see that as a beneficial thing. It means that you can position your application through the perspective of how they would benefit. Because essentially what they're looking for is to give support to the founders, to the companies that are going to help them fulfill their KPIs. And if you explicitly explain how they can fulfill their KPIs, then obviously that makes it a lot simpler. Luma, online events. Luma or Meetup, I think there are many different ones. Essentially check your LinkedIn and check your Luma for different events that might be happening around you. Networking events, any sort of conventions, things that you can join, because from there you get so many conversations that are extremely helpful. Not necessarily that they will, lead you to your next investor, that shouldn't be your immediate goal. Your immediate goal should be improving your platform or improving your offering as much as you can, which means through conversation with people, you can just unlock some sort of part in your brain that you didn't think of. For me, for example, that was on an event that I joined, which I will talk about a bit later on. Challenges that we had: I overloaded my first semester unnecessarily. I took electives, which again, I don't regret because those electives were super nice. Psychology of interaction design, prototyping, and then German A1. German for my personal life and then all the rest for Unsume. But that was a lot because I did full-time university, then those extra electives on top, part-time work, and building Unsume in parallel. So that was quite a bit, but I mean, I thrive in executive environment. If I have goals to reach, then that will make me happy. Finding out about competition in the Baltics, that was something that, it didn't crush me, but it was something that I tried to research as much as I could. Didn't stumble upon everything, and then I did deeper research, stumbled upon the competitors across Baltics, because I knew about the competitors in Netherlands, in England, that was okay, but then there was one in Lithuania called Tingit. So they exist, and that was for a moment for me like, okay, I really need to refine our value proposition and really need to expand it. So that took a little bit of time. And there's a funny story actually from one event where I went to Startup Days in Tartu last year. Investor founder matchmaking event for you to pitch and investors potentially being interested in you, maybe funneling you through the flow of investment later on. I researched all of the investors who were there because I didn't want to waste anybody's time or mine or their time if I'm talking to someone defense tech and I'm coming to them with, hey, this is Unsume. They would not be investing, that's pointless. So I found one person who would be fitting into what we want. I sit with him, start pitching, explaining. He asks questions that lead exactly into what our value proposition is. At the time, it was just the repair, so same as many competitors. He's like, do you know Tingit? I'm like, yes. And he says, they are a portfolio company. So, and I'm like, oh, okay, fine. That makes sense. Thank you so much for your time. I'll go. And there is a photo of that exact moment when he tells me that, because there were photographers at the event. And this was my face at the moment where he explains to me that he has invested in Tingit. So silly moment, but yeah, after that, I definitely focused a lot on finding out alternative ways to refine our UVP. Challenges while testing our first 15 orders, not necessarily like impossible, right? But if you are starting something new, you will eventually find ways in which it doesn't work or in which it needs to be improved. Because in some of those orders, I was doing the repairs myself, and of course that's not the long-term vision. I was just trying to figure out how would that process look like for the provider of repairs, and then once I figured it out, I'm like, okay, cool, we started matching people with the repair providers themselves who would provide the service. But that is quite typical. You can have some sort of automated solution that matches you to this and that, and in reality you just do everything on the back end manually, so that is not too big of a surprise. Now on to the next section, is team formation. For me, that happens somewhat organically, and there are two distinct events that help that happen. In September, when I first started university, I think about a week or 2 weeks into it, I went to an event, I told everyone what I'm building, very passionately with a lot of hand gestures like I always speak. And one developer was interested and he saw my passion, he wanted to help us out. He was like, look, I want to build this, let's go do this together. So he joined our team since then. We didn't immediately go like hardcore into developing the platform, right? Because there were a lot of things to still figure out. So we spoke about the platform architecture, about how it looks like on the back end, what do we need to set up and so on and offs with health problems and so on, but he joined the team. Then another event, I was in my prototyping class, which was one of my electives in the first semester, had to present whatever we were working on. My prototype was distinctly ugly. There were 0 things that actually followed the accessibility guidelines. The background was like light blue, so honestly terrible. This was what I came to them with. Absolutely didn't look good whatsoever, but my idea was also describing what I'm doing, what am I building, what are the goals, what is the vision. And there was in the class one person who was actually teaching at Tallinn University Figma to people, but also in parallel getting his master's degree in human-computer interaction. And that became my UX UI designer. He messaged me afterward. He said, hey, look, I really want to help build this out. So that's how we established our team of 3. Right now we are still missing someone who has a lot of like focus on finance, sales, outreach, marketing, things like that. That person ideally would be just one. So all of those qualities in one, but I think finance is the most important and all the rest we'll actually figure out. I had not much exposure to the tech lingo. If I'm the person who's supposed to give direction as to what we want to build, I need to understand what I'm even guiding, right? So that was something I needed to learn in the process. I found out about vibe coding way too late. To be honest, if I knew about it a bit earlier on than past like 2 months ago or so, then we would have moved a lot faster and we probably would have had our MVP live already, which is now stretching actually until September. And there's a lot to do still. Plus, maybe last one is my developer got some health problems, which is very unfortunate, and I obviously didn't want to push him to do any extra work while he's recovering because that would have been futile. That obviously caused a little bit of a hurdle in the process. On to the important events. First one was Impact Day in 2025. Majority of the focus there was networking. We were volunteering with the university staff, so I was overseeing the sustainability stage, so listening into what is currently happening. Startup Day 2025, mainly useful for inspiration and connection, because we, at that point, this was the moment where I pitched the Bad Ideas Fund. Mainly, again, building up those connections and seeing how other companies are doing their things, because even if they're not in your niche, you can still get inspired and understand how to build what you're building in a much better way. Impact Hackathon. This was a 2-week hackathon that happened online, so not very typical environment, I think, which is normally live with other people. Focus areas were refining existing structures, building a network, pitching there, but it's a bit like a mini competition and so on. The winner, she's not able to attend the Impact Day, which was the prize for the hackathon, so she gave me the tickets. I'm now unsure if I'm able to attend because I'm going to be in Scotland on a Scottish Ethnic Minority Talent Summit, speaking about Unsume, our story, our journey so far, and how important it is to pick your opportunity, jump on it, and attack it with all rigor as you can. Clothing swap that our university was hosting, we wanted to support it with Unsume because that feels useful to our mission, that we treated as another user feedback session, so we gave a QR code that they were able to scan and leave their feedback, leave their ideas, so that we could get a wider number of problem interviews with people. A very, very exciting event. It was Hack the Future Hackathon in May. This is when we joined forces with a team that was trying to focus on building a platform for disaster waste recovery. There, I discovered what Lovable is, which is the vibe coding tool that I discovered way too late. I joined with a really, really fun group of people. Cesar, Chin, and Mustafa. People have their own expertise in their own fields, but all of them super open, super receptive, very supportive, very helpful. So that was just a 10 out of 10 event, and I found that extremely useful. Also, even though we were focusing on another platform, I actually got a chance to speak to very important mentors, such as the City of Tallinn representative, circular economy specialist, and so on, and the Vice Mayor of Tallinn about Unsume, and realized that it is actually important for the city as well. They told us about the Test and Talent program afterwards. I applied to it. I had interviews with them already. So that is so clear to me that unless you take your opportunities, unless you jump onto them, unless you attack, how I say, but I don't actually attack, unless you go for the people that can potentially bring you value, nothing is going to happen. And so how do you expect then to grow something if you just lay back and kind of expect things to happen? No, you just go for them, chase the opportunities, present yourself well. And I think obviously it's easy for me to say because I love to chat, so in my case it doesn't even feel like the stakes are high when I'm talking to people. When somebody who might be introverted might be a lot more stressed about this whole situation, but maybe try to refine that part of yourself. If you know that this is a challenge, focus on how you can get over it. Maybe some sort of improv classes can help you loosen up and realize how talking to other people is actually not that big of a blocker, because essentially they're there to help you out if they have the past experience, which is why they're joining those hackathons to begin with. From the Hack the Future hackathon, I got accidental pass tickets to Latitude 59, which is a huge conference that's happening around the startup space. Then there was Test Nest. So Mustafa, one of the team members from the Hack the Future hackathon, and Chin, they were hosting Test Nest event, which is a space for you to bring your idea, your platform, your physical product, wherever that may be, and test it with real users who would be able to give you feedback. This is exceptionally valuable because you actually get to see how the users navigate your platform and they narrate their process. So you give them some sort of task, in my case, hey, please try to order repair. And then they need to navigate to the relevant section of the website, scroll around, try to upload their images, blah, blah, blah. And that again shows you, because they're narrating the whole thing, where steps don't make sense. And that is super useful to do when you haven't really refined your platform yet. Because the worst thing you can do is create your final product, spend exceptionally long time on making it happen, only to find out that, 90% of it is completely useless, and the 10% that the user uses has not been your main focus anyway. Spike Camp is the most recent event. I think it was 2 weeks ago on Tuesday that I joined it. It was an event for women founders with mentors joining the conversation and helping you back to back with 10 mentor sessions and a very focused vibe coding session to develop your things and open up your mind and prepare for yourself to apply for Antler, which is a massive global fund. I had a follow-up call with Ona. She is a VC in the company. She tried to understand me more as a founder, understand whether or not I would be a good fit for the team and for this program altogether. And then she pushed me to the next round of having a conversation with their partner in the VC fund. So I just spoke this morning with Yussi. seemed to be a very positive conversation. I really hope that we will be able to go through to the next stage, which would be then receiving an invitation from them to join the cohort in September. It would be an 8-week cohort, so a very focused time for you to expand your team, to build on top of what you have already created, to validate all the problems that have happened, and then receive investment from them. Obviously in exchange for a stake in the company, so that wouldn't be equity-free investment. They are taking the risk into developing you and spending their time to get somewhere without any concrete proof that it works, right? Because you are pre-revenue essentially. Yes, we validated with 15 paying users so far, but that doesn't really make us any sort of reoccurring revenue at this stage, because I've purposefully stopped developing ourselves through social media in a way that would catch new users. The focus hasn't been on acquiring as much as we can because we're building up the platform, and that's where the main focus goes. After the Spike Camp event, I got invited to go to Aripäev, which is a massive publication in Estonia focusing on business news, to go to their podcast show, which is called Unicorns in the Making, roughly translated from Estonian. And we recorded that last Tuesday. It should be out shortly, so I will be linking that below as well. But I will probably make a separate video because that was whole thing in Estonian. And for anyone who's listening here, probably that would be a bit of a challenge. So I would love to go in detail as to what we spoke about. The general topic was vibe coding from the perspective of a first-time founder and a VC. I don't have a co-founder. And to be honest, I've not been bothered by it in the beginning when I was just starting to develop things, right? Because there was a lot to figure out before I could concretely say what and how we're trying to do. And the reality is that a lot of different programs rely on the fact that you do have a co-founder. I understand why they do that. Any sort of VC fund, they want to make sure that the team is sound. It is so stable that nothing can rock you. And if everything hinges on this one person, and let's say the worst happened, the person dies, how does the team continue? I mean, it's probably very dark, right? But the person doesn't have to die. Maybe the person will have an off day. They're not feeling well, blah, blah, blah. Everything hinges on this person. So that makes it a lot more of an unstable investment. Whereas if you have two people, then that's a lot more stable. The reality is that probably this is not the main reason. The main reason is if this person decides to exit and everything hinders on them, that's not great. But if there are two people that one of them exits, then the other one can actually still retain that knowledge and pass it on to the next person that they will decide to onboard. At the current stage, I don't think that we are yet at the model, which is the final version of how it's going to look like. And Antler understands that. From my conversation today, they did mention that in most cases, if you invest into pre-revenue company, which is ourselves, you as an investor don't end up receiving the product that you invest into, you receive a different product, but that doesn't really matter. In our case, it matters how we get there from the environmental impact point of view, but this doesn't mean that the current version of Unsume is the final version, because I'm sure there are better ways of having this wider scale impact. And for us, as well as for the VCs, it is super important to be able to scale and to grow super far and super wide and impact as many people as possible. In the beginning, we started off with the idea that we wanted to create a platform that matches people with the broken items to those who can fix it. There are many competitors in the space, so we knew that we needed to come up with a better unique value proposition, and now we have it. The current idea builds on top of this notion of connecting people with broken items to those who fix it, but throughout this process, throughout this interaction, when you get your item repaired, you also get eco points, which you can then take and redeem within the network of sustainable businesses. It can be a vegan cafe, for example. You exchange your eco points to a discount for your meal, get cheaper meal, and this way your barrier to entry for vegan food or sustainable behavior in general is lower. Then you reduce your meat consumption and your environmental footprint is better. And that is just a very niche example of that vegan cafe, right? But we would want to tap into the network of different sustainable businesses to help people improve their environmental footprint with just making better choices. Right now, there is a big intention to action gap. 64% want to be sustainable, but only 26% are actually able to act on it. Usually that comes due to the difference in the price tag. So that is what we're trying to impact. It will be cheaper for you to engage with sustainable network, at least leveling it out to the same price point that you're currently engaging in, but you would be able to make better decisions and better choices. So that's the hope that we're focusing on right now. This is the mission that we're trying to tackle. The reality is that it will probably change many more times over until we find that ideal final version of what we're building, but this is the focus area for the MVP. Currently, we're developing that. The aim is to complete it by September. In September, we will know whether or not we got into test and Tallinn program. Shortly, we should find out whether or not we're joining Antler, and if that's the case, then we begin that in September 1st. It's July 23rd, 2025. I just got a call from Juan at the VC that I spoke to in Antler. They took us in. They decided that Unsume is going to be part of the September cohort, and I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I obviously hoped for this outcome, but what the We are actually joining this. So this means that in September, I'll be in Finland and actually taking part in all of the necessary things to move Unsume along even faster, even stronger, even further. And as a result, we might get investment of up to 200,000 euros, I believe. So this is great. This is awesome news. It will be 200% on Unsume starting from September. So it's bittersweet because I'm at the Bolt office. I'm loving it. I love the office, I love the people, I love everything about it, but I have to pursue my thing full force, and this was the only social proof that I needed and waited for. And here it is. So September onwards, we're saying goodbye to this place. These people around me, the career trajectory that I had has propelled me forward to actually be in a place that I'm in now. I'm so, so grateful. I'm so happy. I'm so excited for what's to come. And there are going to be thousands of challenges, but it's going to be so much more efficient, effective, and exciting with Antler's backing. So, mwah, I'll go celebrate.